On Samhain night, the old people say the world holds its breath. The gates between here and there swing open on rusted hinges, and what was gone comes back, if even only for a few hours before the dawn. These stories are told when the candles burn low. Stories from fields and hearths, from doorsteps and back roads. Stories that don't end cleanly, because the dead don't always leave when the morning comes. Listen close now. The veil this week is very thin. Sean Maguire was not a superstitious man. He'd say that himself, that he had no time for fairy stories or granny's wanderings. Modern farming had no room for the older nonsense. His father had always left the back gate open on Samhain night, every year, without fail, from dusk till dawn. The gate to the Northfield would stand wide open, even in the wind and rain. It's for the dead to pass through, his father had said. They walk the old roads in Samhain, and this land sits on one. You leave the gate open, and they'll make their own way through. Sean thought it was stupid. Worse, thought it was impractical. He said the sheep could wander, the wind could damage the hinges, and after his father died, Sean decided that particular tradition was one that would die with him. The first Samhain night, after the funeral, he locked the gate with a brand new chain and padlock. But he awoke just after midnight. The sound wasn't loud, more like a feeling that pulled him from his sleep. A pressure in the air, thick but somehow expectant, like the moment before thunder breaks. He went to the window and looked out towards the north field. The gate was closed, of course, locked, just as he'd left it. But the fence on either side was gone, not broken nor trampled, just gone. 10 feet of stone wall and barbed wire on each side of the gate vanished into the dark, as if it had never been there. And then through the gap, he could see them. Figures, dozens of them, walking in a slow procession across his field. They moved without a sound, without hurry, their shapes grey and indistinct in the mist. Men, women, children, all walking the same path, heading south towards the old churchyard. Sean stood frozen at the window, his breath now fogging up the glass. One figure stopped, turned its head towards the house. It was his father, the old man's face expressionless, but his eyes holding on to a terrible sadness. He didn't speak, for he didn't need to. The message was clear. You should have left the gate open. By morning the fence had returned, every stone in place, every wire taut, as if nothing had happened. But Sean knew better. He leaves the gate open now, every Samhain till dusk. He doesn't talk about why, and if you ask the other locals, they'll tell you Sean Maguire isn't the man he used to be. He's quieter now, and more careful, and he never locks the gate. The dead walk old roads, but sometimes they don't need a road at all. Sometimes they only need the idea of an invitation. The next story comes from County Sligo, where a young girl learned that not everything that looks like you is actually you. Aoife was 10 years old. The old sewing. Her mother covered all the mirrors. It's a tradition, her mother said, dripping cloth over the hallway glass. On Samhain night, you don't look into the mirrors. The dead can look back at you. Aoife thought it was silly, but she helped anyway, covering the bathroom mirror, the one by the door, and even the small compact one that was on her mother's dresser. All except one. There was an old mirror in the attic bedroom, the room it used to be her grandmother's. Aoife's mother didn't go up there much anymore, and when Aoife asked if they should cover it too, Her mother hesitated. Just don't go up there tonight, love. Just leave it be. But ultimately, children are curious, and Samhain night is long. Aoife, waiting until her mother was asleep, crept upstairs with a candle. The attic room was cold and smelled of lavender and dust. The mirror stood against the far wall, tall, gilded, although its surface was spotted with age. In the candlelight, Aoife could see her reflection clearly. She stared at herself, her dark hair, pale face, and wide eyes. And then her reflection smiled. Although Aoife hadn't smiled, she took a step back, her heart racing. But the reflection didn't move. It stayed where it was, still smiling, its head tilted slightly to one side. Then it spoke. "Let me out." The voice was hers, exactly hers, but somehow wrong, like an echo that came before the sound. "It's cold in here," the reflection said, pressing its palm against the glass. "And you're warm out there. We could trade, just for tonight, just until dawn." Aoife shook her head whilst backing towards the door. The reflection's smile faded, its eyes darkening. "I've been waiting so long. Grandmother promised I could come back. She said the next girl who looked would let me." Aoife ran. She didn't stop until she got back in her room, with the door locked and blankets pulled over her head. She didn't sleep. She waited and listened until the grey light of dawn crept through her curtains. In the morning, her mother found the attic door open and a candle burned down to nothing. She looked at Aoife for a long time. "You went up there?" Aoife nodding in response. Her mother didn't ask what happened. She just pulled Aoife closer and whispered, "Never again. You hear me? Never." That afternoon, they covered the attic mirror, and the next week, Aoife's mother had it removed from the house entirely, taken away by a man who didn't ask questions. But sometimes, Aoife says she can still hear it, a voice that sounds like hers, asking to be let out. Mirrors and gates, doorways and glass, the dead find their way through the smallest of cracks. But fire has always been different. And this story apparently belongs to a widow in Cork who thought she was setting her husband free. Marie had been a widow for 2 years, but the house still smelt like him. His coat hung by the door, his chair sat empty by the fire, his books lined the shelves, his handwriting on the margins. She couldn't bring herself to move any of it. It felt like erasing him completely. But her sister had visited that October and said what everybody else was thinking. "You need to let him go, Marie. He's never coming back." And Marie knew that she was right. So on Samhain night, when the fire is meant to honour the dead, she made a decision. She would burn his things, not all of them, but enough. His old jumper, the letters he'd written but never sent, the pipe that he would smoke out on the back step. She would let the smoke carry him away. She built the fire high and hot, and one by one, she fed his belonging back to the flames. The jumper curled and blackened, the letters cracked and turned to ash. The pipe glowed red before splitting apart, and as the smoke rose up the chimney, she whispered, "Go on now, love, you're free." The fire popped, and someone knocked at the door. Marie froze. Then came the 3 knocks. She stood, her hands shaking, and crossed to the window. The road outside was empty. Not a car, not a figure in the dark. But the knocking came again. 3 knocks, only from the back door this time. Her heart was pounding now. She moved through the kitchen, her breath fogging in the sudden cold, and stopping in front of the back door. "Who's there?" but there was nothing. Then softly a voice. "Let me in, Marie." It was his voice, her husband's voice, exactly as she remembered. "You called me. You burned my things. You said I could come home." Tears streamed down her face. "No, no, you're gone. You're at rest." "I'm at the door, and it's cold out here." She pressed her back against the wall, her whole body shaking now. "You're not him." The knocking stopped, and then, from the fireplace, she heard a soft rustling, the sound of moving ash. She turned slowly and saw it. The fire had gone out, but the hearth was full of cold, grey ash. And in the ash, something was forming. A shape, a hand, reaching out. Marie ran, not stopping to lock the door. She ran through the dark to her sister's house. And she didn't go back until the priest came in the morning. The house was empty, the fire cold, but the ash scattered. The back door was open, and his pipe, the one she burned, sat on the kitchen table, whole and unbroken, and still warm to the touch. Fire calls the dead, but sometimes the dead were never gone at all. They were only waiting for someone to notice them. This happened to a family in Mayo. They thought they were being good neighbours, but unfortunately, they were wrong. The Brennans had lived in the cottage for somewhere around 30 years, and every Samhain they did the same thing. They lit a candle in the window, left a plate of food by the door, and locked up, tight after dark. "It's for the dead," Mr. Brennan would say. "You honour them, yet you don't invite them in." Their children had now grown and moved away, but they kept the tradition. This particular Samhain was quiet. The wind was still, and the night was clear. At 11:30, someone knocked on the door. Mrs. Brennan, looking up from her knitting. "Who'd be calling at this late?" Mr. Brennan went to the window and pulled back the curtain. Two figures stood in the road. A man and a woman, both dressed in dark, old-fashioned clothes. Their faces were pale in the moonlight. "It's the Foleys," Mr. Brennan said. "You know, from up the road." Mrs. Brennan turned frowning. "The Foleys? At this hour?" The knocking came again. Mr. Brennan opened the door a crack. "Is everything all right?" The man smiled. "We were just passing by and saw your light. We thought we'd stop for a visit." "It's a bit late for that," Mr. Brennan said. Something in the man's voice was off. It was too formal and too careful. "Not too late, surely," the woman replied, her voice soft. "It's Samhain. It's a night for the neighbours." Mrs. Brennan, appearing now behind her husband. "The Foleys moved away 3 years ago." Mr. Brennan's blood went cold. He looked again at the couple, really looked. They hadn't moved and haven't blinked. Their smiles were fixed, like something painted on. "You're not the Foleys." The man smiled, now widening. "Well, we were the Foleys, once." And then Mr. Brennan remembered. The Foleys hadn't moved away. They died. Both of them. A car accident on the coast road 4 years ago this November. He slammed the door and locked it. The knocking continued, slow, steady and patient, and it didn't stop until the morning. In the morning, there were no footprints in the road, no sign that anyone had been there, but the plate of food that they'd left by the door was gone, and the candle in the window burned to nothing. The dead remember kindness, but they also remember the living, and sometimes they don't walk alone. This last story is an old one, a warning dressed up as a joke, but no one who's seen the second lantern ever laughs about it. There's a man named Finn who loved drink more than was good for him. Every Samhain, he'd walk back from the village fair, unsteady on his feet, singing loud enough to wake the dead. His wife had given up scolding him years ago. Now she just left the door unlatched, hoping he'd make it home. But this Samhain was different. Finn had stayed later than usual. By the time he left the pub, the moon was high and the roads empty. He carried and carved the turn-up lantern to light his way. An old tradition, though he couldn't remember why. The road home crossed the bog, a narrow path through the wet and dark. Halfway across, Finn stopped. There was another lantern ahead of him. At first, he assumed it was a neighbour, but the light didn't move like a living person's. It swayed gently, drifting just above the ground, keeping pace with him. "Hey there! Wait up, would you?" The lantern above him stopped. Finn walked closer. The light was cold, not warm like his own, and inside the carved turnip, he could see a face. Not carved, formed, a hollow grinning face, its eyes dark and empty. And behind it, a figure, tall and thin, draped in rags, holding a lantern by the cord of braided grass. Finn's stomach dropped. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head. When it spoke, its voice was like wind through a cracked door. "I'm you, from last Samhain." Finn staggered back. "That's not... I'm alive, I'm from here." "So was I," the figure said, "until I walked this road alone, drunk and careless. I fell into the bog, drowned in the black water. No one found me until the next spring." Finn's heart now hammering. "You're lying." The figure stepped closer. "Am I?" And then Finn saw it. His own face, bloated and pale, eyes filmed over, and mouth slack. The version of him that didn't make it home. "You're not real." Finn choked out, but the figure just smiled, replied, "Not yet." It lifted its lantern higher. "The night's not over, and the bog is deep." Finn ran faster than he'd ever run in his life, his lantern swinging wildly, his breath ragged in his chest. He didn't stop until he reached his own front door, stumbling inside and slamming it shut behind him. His wife found him there, in the morning, pale and shaken, refusing to speak. He never drank again, never walked the bog road at night, and every Samhain he locks the door at dusk and keeps a candle burning in the window, because he knows what's out there. A lantern that never goes out, and a figure still waiting for him to fall. The veil closes at dawn, the dead returning to their roads, their gates, their mirrors and hearths. But they leave traces, memories, and warnings whispered from one Samhain to the next. So when the night grows thin, remember, leave the gate open, cover the mirrors, and don't answer the door. And if you see a second lantern on the road beside you, don't look back. If you made it this far, like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from.